You're now tuned in to the Free Play Media Podcast Network.
We are live. We are live. We are live. We are live.
We are live. Chris Denman. I'm going to go solo today. I'll introduce you to our guest in just a moment. Got to say thanks to Barrel Beard and Tattoo Oil. Great sponsor of ours. And given the time, veteran-owned, made right here in St. Louis, Missouri. Check them out. If you have a beard, if you don't, beard and skin product, you guys got to check them out. Great partner of ours here on We Are Live. Today, very pleased to be joined. He's he's performing at the Funny Bone here in St. Louis all weekend long. You know him from American Ninja Warrior. He's a champ of The Apprentice. Matt Iseman. What's up, man? Good to see you.
Nothing. I love that you're going solo. I feel like this is when Sting left the Police. You're Travis, I gotta spread my wings, bro.
Right, I like to compare it to it's almost a Lone Ranger. You remember the movie that Adam Sandler and Steve Buscemi did where they were the Lone Rangers and they took over a radio station? I'm blanking on the cinematic
Radio
masterpiece.
Pirates, was it, or something?
Something along Airheads.
Yeah,
Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Your favorite actor, you were telling me before we turned on the mic.
George of the Jungle. He was so good. He was good in The Mummy.
Yeah, I prefer that.
School Ties? Come on. His later work, not so much.
Well, you know, he does what he can do. But no, we're pumped to have you in St. Louis, man. You've been making the rounds all morning, doing everything. You're still smiling. You're very affable. We had a really good conversation prior to this. Part of the gig? I mean, is this you?
No,
Am I seeing you?
I tend to be a very enthusiastic, positive guy, and I'm someone who I think, I had a career before entertainment. I was a doctor. I went to medical school. I got my MD.
You don't talk about that much.
And I'll occasionally on stage, yeah, right.
I'm giving you shit. It's so interesting.
It's shameful to bring up the...
You're like, I'll tell my story if you're not going to ask it.
It feels like a lifetime ago now. I've been doing comedy now for about 18 years, and it does feel like a lifetime ago. But one of the things I think it gave me was such a perspective on, truly life. We were joking about, life or death situations and what's really important. And so for me, having left medicine where you really are dealing with someone's life, people place their health in your hands and the responsibility of that to come out. I know how lucky I feel to get to come out and do stand-up comedy and to do American Ninja Warrior. And I talk about, like, in my line of work, in our line of work, I think what we do isn't a job. The job is getting the job. The job is being unemployed and having to struggle. But when we get to do what we love to do, like when I'm on stage doing stand-up, I'm having a blast.
You have to be. Why else would you do it, right? Especially with your background. I mean,
it really is. It's great. So for me, when I get to go around and have a chance to... part of the challenge for me, though, is having been on American Ninja Warrior now for 9 years, and
that's
we
crazy.
Just shot this. It's crazy.
It's nuts when you think how long.
I
that's
mean,
been.
A show. I've done so many shows, and look, the people. The numbers on television shows are thousands get pitched, hundreds get made, a dozen might get on air, and you think one or two will make it past a year.
You may, as a creator of a show, if you go to network, you may make over $1 million from and it may never even see air.
Never see air.
And they'll still purchase it. You still get a fat check from them. I guess there's probably writers. Yeah, it dies. It's insane, though.
It dies.
Right?
And you look at people who have shows and it goes 2 or 3 years and it goes away and who was it? Like Alex O'Loughlin, the guy on Hawaii Five-0. Like CBS was determined to make him a star, and it was like year after year after year. And I think Hawaii Five-0 was his 3rd or 4th pilot at CBS, where they're like, "We believe in you. We just got to find the right vehicle." And thank God one stuck, because there are so many people who have a ton of talent.
Yeah, not everybody has stand up to. And I
you just got to get an opportunity.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. And I was lucky. The American Ninja Warrior was one that kind of fell into my lap. They offered it to me, and I had no idea it was going to grow into a network show and have a spinoff. And we're doing a live tour.
Yeah. I lived here in downtown St. Louis. You guys did a
22 degrees when we were here.
Oh my God!
You guys rolled out the red carpet.
I lived on the block. Like I'm walking my pit bull around, and there's American Ninja Warrior happening like right by where I live.
And it's been amazing, like for us, because when we started out, we'd come to a town. It would be kind of a novelty thing. And now, we were just in Cleveland, and thousands of people are lining the course in the middle of the night. People show up at 3 a.m. to get to watch till 6 a.m.
Absolutely.
And people are that passionate about it. And it's been amazing to see the growth and to see gyms open up across the country and to see something go from this niche Japanese show to something on G4 to something on primetime TV to now a sport. I mean, it's bigger than the TV show.
Did that lend it to, so you played 4 years at Princeton, correct, during undergrad? Crazy, by the way. You're not supposed to be athletic, funny, and smart.
Right. Like I said, on paper, I'm impressive, Chris.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I'm taking it all in. I'm liking I like the brown shoes. I appreciate a tall comic. It's weird whenever I have to take pictures and I look like Shrek next to Chris Kattan.
Well, it's because I look short because I'm next to Akbar Bajabiamila, who's 6'6", 260.
Correct.
So I look petite, and people meet me in TV. I'm like 6'4", 245.
You're a big guy.
I'm a big guy, but people never know that, and it's nice in comedy because I tend not to get heckled as much.
Right.
I mean, again, I'm not the most controversial comic. I tend to go up, have a good time. I'm not picking on people, but occasionally you'll get a drunk somebody, but usually you're like, all right, what are we going to do? I mean, I'm not a fighter, so if they really called me out, I'd be in trouble, but I know people who can fight.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure in St. Louis I could pay someone to kick someone's butt.
Exactly, yeah. If my co-host was here, he'd smash you through a table.
Travis is an ass kicker? Good to know.
Absolutely not. He's not at all.
Okay.
But, so we were talking. So as far as American Ninja Warrior goes, do you feel like the athletic background helped with that?
Yeah.
I think stand up and your.
So, it all does. It all does. It's funny. I look at it as I often talk about my career, and I think of cross training. So for me, one of the things, stand up is my first love. I love the immediacy of being on stage, being in front of a crowd without a net, and having to think on your mind, having to create the jokes, and then having to respond in the moment. And I think that's a skill set that absolutely helps with hosting, particularly when you do a live event. Now, we do Ninja, obviously we record a few months in advance, but you try to call it as a live event. And I think having the stand-up background for me makes me feel comfortable with that situation. I've done improv at the Groundlings, I've done acting, and I think all of it kind of feeds into it. And actually, I look at my medical training and think of, the ability, I learned how to process information and retain things, memorize
What's your
things.
So I feel weird not calling you doctor, by the way.
Right, well, technically I am,
yeah,
but my dad's Dr. Iseman.
What's your background?
I went to medical school at Columbia University in New York. And,
not to be confused, does this happen because you're in the arts? Do people go, oh, I went to Columbia College in Chicago, too? And you're like,
people sometimes will think like Columbia, like South America, like you went to a medical school in Grenada. Like,
right.
One of those sketchy schools, like you
the
really
people that
didn't
go
get
to
your
the
MD.
Bahamas, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There's these people, and they go on like a 2-year thing, and I'm like, I don't know that I want you checking out my nuts.
MD,
right. It's a weird thing. But okay, so Princeton, and then the Columbia,
Columbia in New York
where
City.
Marcellus Wiley went.
Wiley,
yes,
very good. He was at the undergrad campus. Unfortunately, the medical school, so the undergrad campus is like 110th and Broadway. We were at 168th, Washington Heights, not the nicest neighborhood, but a phenomenal, like top 3 med school, and got my MD and was doing residency when I realized my heart wasn't in it. And it was one of those things where I liked medical school. I loved the challenge. But as I got into it, I'm just like, this isn't a job. This is a calling. People's lives are in your hands. And I think when I started having this feeling, I used to call it the Sunday blues. Like when you remember in elementary school, Sunday would roll around, you're like, oh God, I got to go to school tomorrow. I started getting that feeling going into the hospital, and I thought, this is not how I should feel for my patients. This is not how I should feel for myself. And so I decided to take a year off to kind of reevaluate. And
what was Dad saying at this point?
So Dad's a doctor.
Yeah.
Ouch, I just kicked the microphone because I'm a professional.
Listen, we get it. You're a star. Do what you want.
He was a professor at the University of Colorado where I was doing residency. So I think part of him is so proud that I'm following in his footsteps, and he never pressured me, but I think I respected my dad and respected the satisfaction.
Is he financially tied to you going through medical school?
Grandparents helped out,
Okay.
but mom and dad helped out as
Yeah.
well, and so they, there was not an inconsiderable
That's an odd
investment.
conversation.
Medical school is not cheap.
Yeah.
But I think that they saw that my heart wasn't in it. So it was hard though to sit my dad down and tell him, this career that you've chosen that I followed in, I'm not sure it's for me. I need to take some time to reevaluate.
That you made it through. Too.
I made
you
it through.
Proved
Right.
it. You didn't flunk out
I
2
talk
years
about it.
in.
This is like the Titanic makes it across the Atlantic and then smashes into the Statue of Liberty and just keeps ramming into it until it sinks.
Right.
Land is right there. You've done it. You've made the journey. So, I sat him down and told him, and to his, the everlasting credit, the first words my dad told me were, life is short, do what makes you happy.
Wow.
And they've meant it. They've supported me in everything I've done and how ridiculous, I go out, and I got lucky in that, doing residency, you're making $32,000 a year.
Right,
You're not
right,
making a lot. And I got out, I got into national commercials within a few weeks of getting out there. So I was making, a good six-figure. So I was making 3 or 4 times as much as I was as a resident.
Immediately?
Almost immediately out in Hollywood, which made it a lot easier to stay. But more importantly,
when you're not waiting tables.
I'm not waiting
immediately,
tables,
yeah.
and I'm making money, but more importantly, I was doing stand-up, and I just fell in love, and I just felt like I found my calling. I found something I was passionate about. I love being on stage. Like when, if you come out to the Funny Bone and you see me, you're going to see someone who's like, I know how lucky I am to have done something that would have been a great, stable career.
Sure.
But that I got the chance to step away from it and find something I truly love. And not many people, I think, in this world get the opportunity or are lucky enough to truly figure out what it is that makes your heart beat faster, that makes you excited to get out of bed. And so, this came about from you going around in the morning. I got up at 7 a.m., which was 5 a.m. LA at 8 time. But I'm getting a chance to go around and tell people I do comedy. Because most people know me from Ninja Warrior. They don't know I do comedy.
Yeah.
And so the
that
opportunity
has to be nice though to get some of those fans to come out and you're like, yeah, but I can do this.
But
too.
I can do this too, and it is, it's so. So I work on a Hallmark Channel show too, because the other thing I believe is career-wise is I say yes to everything. I any opportunity.
Obviously, as you said.
No,
here,
but I mean, like
at Gaslight
literally.
today.
I mean, to do a podcast with someone, and to your credit, Beth said this is one of the best interviews you'll ever do, because Chris and she complimented, not Travis as much.
Thank
He's not
you,
here.
thank
but
you. Don't.
But
Please
said
don't.
this.
The one-on-one. Those are cute when it's
One of
the
the
whole
things she said,
wacky
though,
gang.
is you get an opportunity, and one of the on Apprentice, one of the things I learned was the value of sharing your story, where I talked about having rheumatoid arthritis and being a comedian.
I don't
and,
have to forcibly talk about things you've done.
Well,
You're a pro.
I do. No,
You're a pro.
I love talking about
it.
myself. But the point being that for me, I'm on this Hallmark show and I'm talking to Bishop T.D. Jakes comes
Okay.
on this show.
Yeah, big fan of the Bishop.
And so a guy, who I've heard of a lot, never really heard him speak. And he's actually written this book called Soar, and he's actually talking about entrepreneurship. And so, they had me ask the question, if you're stuck in a job that you don't like, obviously kind of my background in medicine, what advice would you have? And I, kind of throw this question to him, not really expecting this answer. And he goes, if you only accept jobs that people offer you, you will only get hired for what people see you as. If you want to do something different, you have to convince them you can do it. You have to brand yourself. And it was just one of these things, like a punch to the face of as much as I love comedy and as long as I've done it, a lot of people don't know. And so to take an opportunity to come out and do a club, or to come and tell people in St. Louis, that guy from American Ninja Warrior who you hear yell actually is also a comedian.
We're guilty of it as just consumers. Whenever you watch a show, you're like, oh, this is jackass on the TV or do whatever.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's heavily produced. It's very... It's tough. I know it's entertainment, so it's not digging ditches, but it's tough to nail that. The fact that you've even made it to there, everything you've said, groundlings, that's world-class training as far as you're doing that. 18 years of stand-up in L.A.
Yeah.
I saw you were just at the Improv.
Yeah.
Wonderful spot. I've been to shows there. you're going to get booed off the stage because if you suck, then the person after you probably has a Netflix special.
Jim
and
Jeffries
a TV
was
show.
on the stage. I was saying, Jim Jeffries, Jim Jeffries comes up there and
gun control.
Well,
sorry.
no,
Yeah,
no,
it's
he
by
was.
Jim
No,
Jeffries.
he goes. He goes. I wasn't expecting to go up, so I might be drunk and I might have done cocaine. I'm lying. I definitely did cocaine. And he talked about like somebody tried to blackmail me for doing cocaine. Like I have a photo of you doing cocaine, and he's like, I have a photo of me doing cocaine. I've done cocaine off of a photo of me doing cocaine. And I apologize, for my awful Australian accent.
No,
and for
it's
doing
good. It's
Jim's
better than
bit.
mine.
But I wanted to say like, and then I had to go up and follow. I was, hosting the night and I just thought this was so great. And I had a chance. I'd never met Jim Jeffries. And just to tell him, for me, it was so fun to say, I just think, you're wildly entertaining. And I love the fact that, you'll talk about anything. And again, I tend to be a little goofier, clean comedian, but I love all styles of comedy. And,
Sure.
and I'm a fierce believer in that either everything's fair game or nothing's fair game. And it's an interesting time right now for people who earn their living with words. As you see, one wrong joke can end a career, a wrong tweet, a tweet that is perceived or taken out of context.
Right.
And, to me, what amazes me is as I look at this and as entertainers and, there are, when you see someone get crucified for a joke that people deem tasteless, but is a joke, or that at least there was an attempt of humor, and I just kind of feel when we don't say like God, we need to allow people to say things we disagree with. The importance of freedom of speech and freedom of disagreement is rather than silencing someone, you debate them, you argue, you point out their inconsistencies rather than silence them. And again, as someone, I don't think I ever really cross a line, but I want comedians like Jim Jeffries or Jim Norton or Doug Stanhope who say things that are totally offensive but make me laugh. I want them to be able to do that because I think it's such an important way for us to talk about difficult topics. And as I look at things, I think politics is often downstream of culture. And when you look at Ellen's sitcom, her coming out on her sitcom,
That was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
A huge deal.
A huge deal. And I think for so many people, more so than any political campaign, to see this woman who are like, oh, she's funny.
Yeah.
How something like that, can through comedy, you can change people's minds.
Yeah, and that's, I always laugh about Ellen. Like, I've literally never seen her show. Like, I've seen clips or something, but like, even for something that appears to be as simple as like hosting the Ellen show, how many years has she been a stand-up? And like, good luck matching that level.
And the people laugh about the Kardashians, and I'm like, I think they've been on for now 10 years. They just signed a $150 million extension.
Don't be mad at them. Be mad at Ryan Seacrest if you're mad at anyone.
But my point is, I'm like, look, out of all this entertainment options in the world, people are choosing them. They're doing something right, something compelling.
Right.
So it's one of those things like, it might not be my cup of tea, but I have such tremendous respect for them that they've managed to make themselves relevant. Now, whether they're selling their souls to the devil, whatever it is, I think, being in entertainment, you realize how hard is it to A, get an audience, and B, keep an audience. Because as we're seeing, it used to be 3 channels. Now there are thousands, literally millions of channels if you think of YouTube or Hulu or anyone can post something. You can go Facebook Live. And for something to stand out and for someone to maintain an audience, whoever does it, however they do it, I respect. I'm like, it might not be what I enjoy, but you're doing something that people are responding to.
And it's under the vertical of entertainment, too.
Yeah.
I mean, and I haven't name dropped enough, but my podcast partner from another show, Ian Bagg, very.
I love Ian Bagg. I'm the comedian. I'll put fingers in your mother.
But he absolutely, he'll say, he's like, and he's a pretentious bastard about some comics or comedy, but he will say, if you make $1 off of getting out there, it's so hard to do anything. And I watch it with him. He's pitching shows right now. just because he's one of the funniest acts you'll ever see doesn't mean he's selling that TV show. It's refreshing to hear you say that too.
And it is, and it's one of those things when that is one of the things that bothers me about comedy, and that I respect Ian for saying it because I agree too. Like we saw it with Dane Cook or Larry the Cable Guy or Carlos Mencia for a little different reason, but how some comics will have a stratospheric rise or Amy Schumer, and then there's this backlash.
Yep. Yeah.
And so many of it are comics who are like, I'm funnier than they are, rather than saying,
are you?
Right. A, are you? And B, look, it doesn't matter what you think. It matters what the audience thinks. The
Correct.
audience is right. And, to a certain extent, when you look at a comedy club, one of the realities is they don't really care if you're funny. They care if you can put butts in seats. And because it's money. It's money. And, so when someone like Dane Cook or someone has this meteoric rise, and I was there in LA, there was this club called Dublin's, and it was the most magical club. It was Tuesday nights, this guy Jay Davis, and it was the hottest room in town. I mean, the Laugh Factory, Comedy Store, nothing. Tuesday nights at Dublin's, it was 300, 350 people, Justin Timberlake, everyone showing up, and A-list comics would go up, and if they didn't bring their A-list stuff, you would bomb. I mean,
really?
This was one of the toughest rooms, and Dane Cook would go in there and destroy, and it was one of those things where I think a lot of people saw him on TV, and I think some comics, Jerry Seinfeld, he's very verbose, he's very wordy, very clever, that translates. But to have seen Dane Cook, what he did live, I thought, as a performer, I'm like, I don't care what people say. Like, I saw what he did to this room week after week, month after month, year after year, where I was like, this is one of the greatest, most electric live performers I've seen. And so when people tore him down, I was like, his success only serves to help comedy in general.
Right.
To get more people to want to see it. The blue collar guys, you might not like them, but people go see their act, they enjoy it, then they come to the comedy club. And so, as comedians, I'm always like, when someone has success, I'm happy for them because I think it helps stand-up in general. Kevin Hart going around generates more interest in stand-up. Amy Schumer does the same thing.
It is so tough just to get someone to do the act of leaving their home and walking into a club.
Yeah.
Is so damn tough. Like, even the people, say you sell out every show this weekend at the Funny Bone, which you guys got to go see him this weekend, Funny Bone. Even if you sell out every single one, that's still, compared to the population of the city, a tiny, minuscule percentage of people that are actually out. So the act of actually getting people there is such a tough task. Here's a question, and it falls to Dane Cook. I saw a picture of Dane Cook, who's in his 40s too. Whatever he's jacked. He's a good-looking guy. Same for you. We have friend Michael Costa, handsome guy.
Yeah, I know Costa.
Former professional tennis player.
Right.
It's funny to me whenever there's the weird turnaround backlash to, in every other social norm in America, you walk into a room, some people are going to notice you, you're taller, you're a handsome guy. In comedy, it can backturn in a way too. So I almost appreciate that at times where I'm like, oh, he's showing you people that are maybe thinking that you're superior with, like you said, being very wordy or verbose. It's interesting to me to see that, to come back around, being a handsome guy or something too. And Brendan Schaub, who's a fighter, who's now
the fighter and the kid with Brian Callen,
correct,
great MMA, great podcaster,
absolutely. And he's like headlining stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's too quick for his stand-up. I haven't seen it, but I bet he's facing some of that too. Does that? Do you know what I'm getting at? There?
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think it's much tougher for women, for a pretty woman, where a lot of guys might not listen.
Very good point.
I mean, for me, I've always felt that I think I tend to be goofy enough and self-deprecating enough. I don't know. I haven't.
You don't
noticed.
have the jock air about you, despite maybe someone thinking you have the look.
Yeah, I think so. And I think growing up, I identified more probably. Again, I was an athlete. I played in college, but obviously it was Princeton, so it wasn't. That's like being on the chess team at Miami. It's not exactly what Princeton's known for.
Yeah.
I've always known. I think that I've identified probably more with the intellectual side, and for me, I always felt like I was a younger brother, and for me, comedy was the way I got along with my older brothers. So for me, I think I've always felt comedy was how I related to people. So for me, I feel comfortable about it. I don't know. It's an interesting question.
It's always something funny to pay attention to.
I think I know. My mom said, I'm like 6'4", and she's like, being tall is an unearned advantage. And I definitely know for hosting, for things, if I'm running a show, being a physically larger guy, I can command like an audience a little better, like a Ninja
may not
Warrior.
have to work right.
You may not have to work as hard. For comedy, I don't know. It's something obviously that's a great question.
It's a weird,
It's
unperceived disadvantage at sometimes.
Yeah.
It depends on the room too. I mean, you could have a room full of people waiting for you to say something, and they're totally down with it.
It's that's one of the great things about comedy, I think, is that every night is completely different, and that you could do the exact same act, and in your mind you're like, I said it the same way, and it can be completely different. And that's one of the great things about it, I feel, is it's this one of these things that I've read a lot about. There was Amy Cuddy, this professor at Harvard, who did one of the TED Talks talking about presence, and one of the things they talked about was performers, great performers. And they talk about the need to work, prepare, do hours and years of work. But when you're actually performing, to do the complete opposite and relax and to be present. And it's one of the great lessons of stand-up of, we spend so much time writing, we get so obsessed with our words that sometimes you forget to tell the joke, to tell the thought, the emotion behind it. And as a comic, one of the great things is, you spend all this time writing, and one of the early mistakes you get is you get obsessed with, I'm saying the joke this way, but you're just saying words and you forget why it's funny. And so what I love about comedy is it is a dance. You're on a wave, and it's this immediacy. And as soon as you check out, as soon as you start thinking about something else or think about what joke I'm going to tell next, you can feel it, and the crowd can feel it, and the crowd lets you know when the laughs start dying down.
Yeah.
But it's what I love about it is this. It's this dance, and it's this thing that keeps you present. And I also think it's, again, going back to hosting, that thing of really observing what's going on and really being open and present to it. And it's, I think it makes you a better person in life. My girlfriend will disagree. She says I'm not always present. I'm playing video games.
Yeah.
But it's what I love about stand-up. And one of the things I think that is best about it is that every night is different, and every night forces you to you can't just go through the motions, because if you do the crowd sense, you get caught.
A mixed martial arts fight.
Yeah.
He has 30.
I mean, did you watch
weapons.
GSP and Bisping the other night?
That trap he set, and he even I set the trap. I can't do a GSP, but
GSP,
Michael Bisping,
But I thought GSP was gassed. I thought he was done.
I did too. I tweeted it out. I go, GSP's slowing down, and what's Bisping known for? Going all day. His heart rate's like unhuman. So whenever he did that, and I again, very low level in the past, have competed in that stuff.
Really?
And I
that's
thought
amazing.
This, and I watched I watched him letting him go up. And I go, Bisping, don't give up your back. He gave up his back. Okay. And it was over
locked
17 and literally St. Pierre, like a tactician, like a doctor, like a educational mind. I set the trap. I knew he would take it, and now I'm champion.
And that's one of the things that I love about it that people don't appreciate is the chess that goes on there, where you set this stuff up. And I think, on a obviously much lesser degree, but with comedy you do that as well.
Correlation.
Where you set these things up, and you direct people one way to set up a joke later.
That's why it's so frustrating if someone, and I've learned to just shut up because you guys are pros, but seeing so much comedy, Claire from Accounts Payable that's there, and she's like, well, why would you say that? And then you're like, and then
just killed my callback.
Like, will you shut up? He's working to it. But then you get there. But yeah, you're right.
It's fun. I mean, it is. It's that's what when you see a great fight in MMA and you see that back and forth. That's kind of the way comedy feels sometimes, where it is this dance. It's under.
Oh, there we go. I dropped my phone. I gotta make sure.
We are so clumsy here. It is directly under your feet.
I'm gonna use my my feet. Here we go.
But that's what I love about comedy is, with Ninja Warrior, we tape it and it gets edited and it gets shown weeks or months later. But with stand-up, it's the immediacy. And I remember Jerry Seinfeld saying, I don't care how famous you are, you get 5 minutes. After that, people aren't going to fake laugh. They're not going to care about your show. They're going to be like, either make me laugh or not. And a crowd will let you know. And it's great when you're like, if you tell a joke, sometimes like, they're an idiot, they didn't get it. No, they came there to laugh. That's the challenge is to figure out how do you make 300 people from different backgrounds, of different states of drunkenness and maybe in different moods. How do you at the same moment get them all to see the mental picture in your mind with the words? And that's why I love a guy like Brian Regan is one of my favorite comedians. Just a guy who's completely clean and totally goofy, but who
the whole family can listen to his
album. The whole family can listen, but who I remember the first time I saw him, within 5 seconds, I was laughing out loud, and I don't think I've ever laughed as hard as I have as I do at Brian Regan. And how clever he'll start with a joke, and then I'll listen to him. And I was just listening to him do his UPS joke, where there's a 30-second setup, and then it's every line is a punchline.
Killing.
And I'm just like, that's not by accident. He's worked for years to figure out the verbiage, the pauses, and that's what it is. It really is. It's a tweak. It's, I flip the words here or I pause here. And like, when you see, as an MMA performer, you see someone do it, or a musician, you see someone play a riff. As a comedian, when you see someone able to do that and take a joke and to push it and to take a topic that normally would be a minute long and do 10 minutes on it, and you tip your cap and you're like, that. I hope people appreciate how hard that is.
Oh my gosh! As an audience member, you have to watch yourself from cheering at the wrong moment because you're applauding the setup to whatever.
Yeah.
Even we were talking about a small comedy festival that's being set up here. I set up a ton of events. I had them. You have to do this. You have to do that. And then the people that show up are just like, well, my pizza was cold. It wasn't that great of a night, or whatever it was. It's like, this took 3 months and appearances, all this stuff. So yes, the process, I think that shows a higher level of intelligence if you can grasp that that entire process.
But that's what you get too, and that's one of the things like we learn in LA is, people always say we're coming to your show, but I get it. Like, they work a full day. And Jay Moore said this once. I remember him saying it. Jay Moore, he was talking on stage and he goes, look, I know you worked 12 hours at Napa Auto Parts today to earn $127, and you're coming out here with your girlfriend and you're going to spend $83. So for the next 22 minutes, I'm going to give you everything I have to entertain you. And I just thought it was such a good way to summarize it, of like this blue collar mentality of, you paid your money.
Yeah.
My job is to entertain you.
Right.
And not to tell you you're wrong.
It's an exchange of goods.
Yeah, it's an exchange of goods. And it really is, you've selected this. Out of all the things you could do, you could sit home and Netflix, but you got off your ass, you came out. And so now, Red Rocks. I was at Red Rocks, and it's pouring rain. This is the great concert venue in Colorado. Pouring rain, and we went to see John Bon Jovi, and it got delayed for like 2 hours. And he came out, and he said, You waited in the rain for 2 hours for me, so for the next 2 hours, my ass is yours. And he just started rocking. And it was one of those things where I was just like, just that statement alone.
The acknowledgement.
The gratitude of someone who appreciates the audience. And that's one of the things that I think why, getting back to this point of why I'm so enthusiastic is I know how lucky I am with the opportunities I've been given and the shows I have and the opportunity to get to do stand-up at the Funny Bone. And so for me, if people come to the show, like I want them to leave going, I'm glad I came. That was a great time.
Money well spent, man. Yeah, it's crazy. By the way, Jay Moore used to do regular spots on our radio.
Yeah.
Didn't owe us anything. A, he's insane. B, he's
brilliant,
so funny. And what you just said,
on the phone, he can be funny on the phone, which is almost
that's
impossible.
What he would call it, and we would talk privately, and he would just be like, "Yeah, I just feel like if I'm going to call in, I got to make everybody." I'm like, "Yeah, man, you're awesome. Yeah, he's
awesome,
very a talented guy." Here, before we get you out of here, I had a couple questions. A friend of mine. Whenever you guys came through St. Louis, he was in the UFC. He was a welterweight,
right,
which means he walks around at like 190, but a guy who has no fat on his body.
Right.
I was like, hey, why don't you go win this thing?
Right.
And he was like, no, that's for people that are 5'6" gymnasts that are 160 pounds at most, probably more like 130, 40 pounds.
Yeah.
Is it? And I don't pay attention to the show enough to know. Is it mainly guys like that? Well, did John Dodson compete in that? Or
we've had like the biggest guy we had complete a city finals course was Cam Wembley, who was a defensive end for the Titans at 6'5", 255. But so, we came from a Japanese show and their numbers are a little more where they've now had, I think, 3,300 people go through and I think 4 have completed all 4 stages.
Wow.
All of them 5'5" or under, 150 pounds or under. The 2 guys for us who've completed it, Jeff Britton and Isaac Caldiero, I think they're both under 6 feet, but 5'9" to 5'11", a little taller, and 155 to 160, but both were rock climbers. So, just grip strength for days, because so much of it, the initial course for us, a lot of it is agility, then, a little strength. But stage 3 in Las Vegas becomes so much upper body strength, where any additional mass you have is just sapping that grip strength. So you really do need to be lean. One of our better competitors is Grant McCartney, who's like 6'2", 195. But you see it. You see the impact of, on an extended course, that additional mass, you're running with, a small child on your back. So
crazy.
It's, and that's, but in a way, it's what makes it great is, look, people from 5 feet tall, Casey Catanzaro was, our breakthrough gymnast, 5 feet tall, 95 pounds, to, we've had 6'10", 6'6", 6'7", and, we had 270-pound guys. People from 21's the youngest, but we've had 77-year-old people, men, women, all different sizes. And it's the one sport where they all can compete. And what's kind of cool is, again, you look at the NFL, my co-host is Akbar Bajabimil, 6'6", 260. He was a journeyman player, and this guy's a specimen. So you look at like, for people who couldn't play, who didn't have the dimensions for football or basketball, or maybe, baseball wasn't their sport. This is a sport that suits a different type of athlete. And so I think it's been really cool to have these people who really never found an organized sport, who've now found this thing that rewards their athletic gifts.
Right.
And more importantly, I think, than talent, the thing that separates the great ones is tenacity. It's perseverance. It's training. It's
taking
hard
it to
work.
another level.
It's really is, the harder you work, the better you do. And so it's been a show, I think, that came out, we were fortunate to come out at a time when people were getting bored with treadmills. CrossFit was on the rise, Tough Mudders, and to be a sport that women can do well at a time when, we want to empower women and have young girls feel like they can do anything. So, if it came out 3 years before, maybe we're off the air now, but we came up, so there's a huge degree of.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you,
That's
man.
so
I
great.
appreciate it.
Seriously,
It's been
that's
great.
9 years. That's crazy.
It's absurd.
We haven't went too deep on it, and we only have a limited amount of time. The Apprentice. You won The Apprentice. I've seen Chael Sonnen do it. I've seen Adam Carolla be on it. I've seen
Sonnen was great. I love Chael Sonnen.
He's
a great talker.
Great talker. Yeah, absolutely.
And a good guy.
He seems like a wonderful guy too. So experience on that. First off, how many people go? Are they mistaken, or did they go, oh, the one with Schwarzenegger? Like, is that weird because of the president being out there all the time?
So it was politicized. I mean, the good news was, going into it, I was, one of the lesser known celebrities on there. It's guys like, Vince Neil or Chael Sonnen.
I would have been
Snooki.
I would have had
Brooke Burke.
John Lovett doing his voice of the critic, which is basically just his voice.
Literally,
the whole time.
the entire time I'm around Lovitz, I'm like, I'm John Lovitz.
Right.
Theater. I'm doing
Will you
Lovitz
be the
to
devil
Lovitz.
for
You
like
cannot-
2 seconds?
But he was
Yeah.
such a good sport about it.
Yeah.
But I think so. It was. We shot it in February of 2016 when Trump was one of 16.
Right.
No one even thought he had a shot of the primaries, let alone winning. But it airs during the inauguration. It becomes a political, nuclear waste dump. And
Arnold's
he's
tanking
tweeting. They're going
yeah.
back and forth. And so it was unfortunate, because for me, it was a phenomenal experience.
Well, it had to be a little scary, right?
was.
To do something
Totally.
different like that. And then knowing that you ended up raising almost $1 million for charity. Holy cow. That's fantastic.
the scare. One of the best things it did for me, though, was on American Ninja Warrior, I risk nothing.
Right.
I'm the host. I'm not going to fall. If I screw up, we can pick it up. To be on this show where people are looking to backstab you, or they're looking for you to fail or criticize you, that fired up my competitive juices again.
Right.
And it was so much fun to feel challenged in different ways, and to feel like everything from hosting, from stand-up, from being a doctor, from working hard, to playing sports, to being a team player, to being able to relate to people, to being positive. All of that came into play during the 13 episodes that we did. And that having Schwarzenegger as the boss ended up being an advantage for me, because I think Trump was a much more unpredictable guy who really fomented discord. He wanted disagreements. and he wanted famous people. And
Right.
I think, with him, I don't think I win. With Schwarzenegger, there was a guy who was like, I want someone to work hard. I want someone to take risks. And now I was like, look, I'm willing to make a jackass out of myself, and I'm willing to work harder than anyone.
Right.
And so it paid off, and it was a phenomenal opportunity that unfortunately not a lot of people saw.
Well, but it's the same.
But I raised $1 million for my charity, the Arthritis Foundation. So in the end, it was absolutely worth it.
Absolutely, and especially whenever you have a guy like Schwarzenegger that, man, an immigrant that came over the American dream. Say what you want. Say how about silly things with him. Self-made, like you said, and still working his ass off.
And to meet a guy like him, to meet Steve Ballmer from Microsoft, who owns the Clippers, $25 billion, Jessica Alba, whose company is worth $2 billion, Tyra Banks, to meet and talk to these people who've been so successful in their areas, and to have the opportunity for them to give you feedback, and for them to see you, and Mark Burnett, the producer,
legendary
to be around this guy, for me to get to show them my skills and show them, to have these connections. I think at some point it's going to be one of those things that I look back on and be like, that was one of the more important things I did. And if nothing else, what it's done for me, and as someone who has rheumatoid arthritis and the money I've raised for the Arthritis Foundation, already knowing the awareness I raised and the money I've raised, I left medicine, and yet here I am being able to make a difference in people's lives in a positive way. So
love it. Well, hey, go see Matt at Funny Bone.
I love to talk about myself, guys. Clearly, it'll be hilarious.
It's fantastic. I'm excited. Dude, thank you so much for coming by.
My pleasure. By the way, he didn't have a single note. I got to say, I'm so impressed with his preparation. You're right. This was a phenomenal interview.
You're going to give me an hour. You're coming here to
it.
promote. You're not coming here because you think I'm a cool guy. You're taking a chance to come by here.
I appreciate it, though, because I know how hard it is.
Respect.
You get it. Well, I appreciate it. It was a ton of fun, and thank you.
Yeah, and thank you to Vest Soda. Thank you to Barrel Beard and Tattoo Oil.
And Travis, you're lost, bro.
Yeah, you're out, buddy. Yeah, it's going to be Iseman and Denman from here on out. That's right. Maybe he can go with Akbar.
That's right. We're breaking it up.
That's right. That's it. It's We Are Live. Be sure to rate and review us on iTunes, all that good stuff. And follow Matt and all his great work. Watch American Ninja Warrior and, Hallmark Channel. A lot of Hallmark Channel listeners.
Hallmark Channel, right. Home and family.
Yeah. Thanks again, man. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Chris.